Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most sudden, devastating, and honestly, entirely preventable industrial disasters in American history. We're looking at the 1972 Buffalo Creek flood. It's a pretty intense story about geography, industry, and the terrifying consequences of just ignoring the warning signs. So let's set the scene. It's a seemingly ordinary morning, February 26, 1972. Way up in the hills of West Virginia. You've got these small, tight-knit mining communities stretching right along the narrow, winding valley of Buffalo Creek. For the folks waking up there, it was just another Saturday. But man, in a matter of literally seconds, life in that valley was going to change forever. When you read through the accounts of the survivors, it's chilling, because they almost all use these exact words. They talked about this terrifying, deafening roar just echoing through the valley. And it wasn't the sound of thunder or, normal flooding. They said it sounded like a massive freight train hurtling directly toward their homes at impossible speeds. Part 1, a disaster without warning. We're starting right in the middle of the chaos here, because grasping the sheer suddenness of this event is absolutely crucial to understanding the tragedy. Just take a look at the stark contrast here. On one side, you have a community going about its morning. Sure, it had been raining heavily for days, but normal life was carrying on. Then, on the other side, the instant arrival of a nightmare. We're talking millions of gallons of thick black water completely churning with mud, rocks, and toxic mining debris, just violently rushing down the valley. In some spots, this wave reared up as high as several houses. There was simply no way to prepare for that. Part 2, life in the valley. To really figure out how a catastrophe of this magnitude happened out of nowhere, we need to step back and look at the physical setup. The geography of Buffalo Creek was, quite frankly, a ticking time bomb. Check out how this was structured. Step 1, you have 3 massive coal waste dams looming at the very top of the hills. Step 2, sitting right behind those dams are millions of gallons of water heavily mixed with toxic mining waste. And step 3, right underneath all of that are narrow valley communities. Generations of families living directly in the shadow of a literal mountain of toxic sludge. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth live there? Well, families had been in that valley for generations. Their homes were built right close to the creek. Plus, the coal mines were the absolute economic lifeblood of the region. They provided the jobs, they supported the whole local economy. But, this created a terrible tension. Residents relied on the mines to survive, yet many privately worried about the safety of those massive waste dams, especially after days of relentless heavy rain. So they lived with this awful tension of trusting the very structures they feared. Part 3, the wall of water. The turning point is what happens when that fragile trust breaks and the largest of those 3 massive dams completely gives way without any warning whatsoever. When that dam broke, the black water traveled at tremendous speed. And it didn't just flood homes, it violently ripped them completely off their foundations. Entire schools, churches, and long-standing businesses were just erased in a matter of minutes. The water was so thick and moved with such crazy momentum that it easily carried away cars, massive trees, and whole intact buildings like they were toy blocks. It was systematically erasing communities as it rushed down the gorge. If you were caught in the path of this wall of water, survival was literally a matter of seconds. There was no evacuation order, 0 sirens. Escape meant dropping whatever you were doing and scrambling up the steep hillsides instantly, most of the time with nothing but the clothes on your back. And those who actually made it to higher ground, they could only watch in horror, desperately searching the muddy aftermath for loved ones as the flood destroyed everything they had ever known. And the aftermath? That presented an entirely new nightmare for rescue operations. The basic infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, was completely obliterated. The valley was entirely cut off from the outside world. Emergency responders couldn't just drive in, which forced them to rely heavily on overhead rescue helicopters to scan the devastated landscape. They had to pluck stranded survivors from the few rooftops and hillsides that were still sticking up above the sludge. Part 4, the immediate devastation. Let's pause our timeline right here to look closely at the numbers, because the sheer loss is incredibly sobering. More than 120 men, women, and children lost their lives to that sudden wall of water. In small, close-knit communities like these, that meant absolutely everyone lost someone they knew. Over 1,000 residents suffered injuries, and we're talking severe injuries here, sustained in that violent, frantic scramble to escape the debris-filled wave. and nearly 4,000 people were instantly left homeless. We aren't just talking about a bit of water damage to the drywall. Their entire towns were virtually erased from the map. Everything they owned just gone in an instant. Part 5. Investigations and Lawsuits. With the valley practically wiped clean and the survivors in deep mourning, public attention very quickly and rightfully turned to accountability. How could this happen? This right here became the central burning question that drove weeks of intense scrutiny, federal investigations, and highly publicized public hearings. Because remember, this collapse wasn't an act of nature. It was a massive failure of a man-made structure. Investigators focused heavily on 3 systemic failures. They looked at the fundamental design of the coal waste dams, basically questioning if they were ever even meant to hold that volume of liquid in the first place. They scrutinized the construction methods used to actually build them. And critically, they investigated the inspection, or really the complete lack thereof, of these structures. All this intense focus eventually led to massive lawsuits and forced a very painful national reckoning regarding the safety regulations for mining operations across the country. Part 6. A Legacy of Safety. The Buffalo Creek flood remains to this very day one of the absolute worst coal mining-related disasters in American history. Its aftermath fundamentally changed the industry. The timeline of this tragedy really offers a heartbreaking contrast. The actual physical destruction of the valley, that happened in mere minutes. Then, the investigations and legal battles unfolded over weeks and months. But for the families who lost everything, the struggle to rebuild their lives and somehow heal from the emotional scars took years. For a lot of them, it lasted a lifetime. Now, more than 50 years later, it stands as a grim but powerful historical lesson on why safety is non-negotiable. Ultimately, the entire legacy of Buffalo Creek comes down to this core concept. It's a harsh, unforgettable reminder that industrial safety isn't just about ticking boxes on some paperwork. It requires proper engineering and relentless, strong oversight. Ignoring warning signs, basically waving away the legitimate fears of the community, inevitably leads to catastrophe. We have to protect communities from tragedies that are entirely preventable. So I want to leave you with this question to chew on today. As we look at the industries operating in and around our own communities, the dams, the plants, the infrastructure we drive past every single day, are we truly putting human safety above everything else? Or are we, in some ways, still ignoring the warning signs? It's a question Buffalo Creek demands we never stop asking. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.